This is the EWN Podcast Network.
Welcome to Late Boomers, our podcast guide to creating your third act with style, power, and impact. Hi, I'm Kathy Worthington.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Join us as we bring you conversations with successful entrepreneurs, entertainers, and people with vision who are making a difference in the world.
Everyone has a story, and we'll take you along for the ride on each interview, recounting the journey our guests have taken to get where they are, inspiring you to create your own path to success. Let's get started. Hello, and welcome to Late Boomers. I'm Kathy Worthington, and I'm here with my co-host, Mary Elkins, and we are welcoming a new guest to our show today, Countess Ilene Medecin, the former First Lady of Nice, France, and the French Riviera.
And I'm Mary Elkins. Ilene lived the life that little girls dream of glitz and glamour of the French Riviera, rubbing shoulders with royals and celebrities. Now she's written a memoir titled Arrested about her exciting times there. Welcome, Ilene. We're looking forward to hearing about your book and about your story.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really wonderful to be on your podcast. And thank you about helping me to promote my book. It's called Arrested.
I don't know that it needs that much promotion, but we'll get into that later. We want you to tell us all about it.
But first, Ilene, where did you grow up? And did you ever dream about what you wanted to do in life? And did you ever imagine you'd have this life you've lived?
Something, I grew up with Disney movies. So, of course, and this is in Beverly Hills. And then when I was 2.5, we moved to Vancouver, British Columbia. And that's kind of significant because my father was washing the money for my uncle, who was a well-known gangster. And we opened up.
Wow.
And so he was legitimizing the money. And so we were there for 4 years and then came back to Beverly Hills and then moved out actually to Encino for 4 years and then came back to Beverly Hills. And that's where I grew up. So,
Wow. But did you envision what could ever happen going to being in France?
I've always lived in romance in my mind from the time I was cognizant. And I've always loved Europe. And I thought, oh, God, it would be wonderful if I could marry somebody eventually in England, because at the time I didn't speak anything but English, and, and be over there and have just this really, incredible romantic British life over there. That didn't happen. And something else happened, which I wasn't quite, it wasn't in my bucket list.
Should I ask you how you met your husband, Jake Medecin? Because he was one of those people. He was the mayor of Nice. He was the president of the French Riviera. And he was a member of the Italian de Medici family, which is royal, isn't it?
Yes. They were aristocrats in Italy, the Medicis. And they were, known actually for a lot of debauchery and a lot of, which my husband actually, a descendant, I must say he was quite wild.
Well, talk about how you met him and what happened when you first met him.
Okay. I was actually having lunch with a friend of mine at the Brighton Cafe in Beverly Hills. And I was eating, I'll never forget this because I was eating their famous sandwich. I had a meatloaf sandwich on rye. And the male nurse of my uncle, who was Max Factor, and he was the cosmetic magnate, was passing by the window and saw me. We used to party together. And he came in and he says, I haven't seen you, in a few months. What's going on? And he says, oh, by the way, this is Jake Medecin. This is Max's niece, Ilene. And I stood up and I looked at him. And I've always been crazy about Rossano Brazzi. So he looked like Rossano Brazzi.
Tell our audience the type he was.
Tall. He was about 6'2" at the time, because everybody's been shrinking. And he had this beautiful mustache. He had, gray hair and a personality. I mean, you could just tell that he was powerful. I mean, when he came in and I stood up and we shook hands, there was an electrical current that went through our arms. And I'm telling you, we looked at each other, and he said later, it was the coup de foudre, which was the lightning bolt. And we just looked at each other, and he said, "Please come shopping with me." And so I said to the man I was with, I said, "I'm sorry, but I have to leave." And and I said, "But I'm going to pay for my sandwich because I'm leaving you." So we were walking up Rodeo Drive because he was in Canada. He was minister at the time, and he had a lot of appointments with the different mayors and the different ministers. And they all got stuck in the airport because of an electrical failure. And he decided that he was holding too many positions in the country, and he was having a nervous breakdown and a physical breakdown. And he said, I got to get out of here just for a few days because we finished all our business. So he called his press secretary in Paris, who actually was having an affair with Dooney, who was the male nurse of my Uncle Max Factor. And so anyway, so that's how we met. And we went up to Mr. Guy's, which was a male store, which was like the store, one of the stores for men in Beverly Hills on Rodeo. And I stood next to him as he was getting some summer clothes because he only had winter clothes for Canada. And we stood next to each other, and he leaned into me, and my knees buckled. And I've never had any kind of reaction or emotion like that ever. And I just was fascinated by him, and I was wondering if he felt the same thing. Well, he was. So we'll take it up from there.
So when would that have been?
That was September 23rd, 1976.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Good memory. Oh, sure.
I'll never forget that date. Changed my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell us about what life was like for you in France. Was it hard for you to learn to speak French?
Well, excuse me. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Jacques had said to me, Americans, they never learn other languages. And he was very, very jealous and protective because I was almost 21 years younger. And he wanted to make sure that he was like constantly with me. And so he would translate for me everything. And he said, "I will translate for you, my darling, for the rest of our lives." Well, I don't like to hear that, saying that, well, you don't have to speak French, you'll never speak French. So I decided that I was going to speak French if I'm in France, So we hired actually a British French teacher, and she taught me a few things to say. I had maybe 6 lessons from her, and then I was thrown in the public. So basically, I learned French by just being in the public and speaking with people, and
making mistakes like we all make.
The mistakes I made were so funny. It was funny. I was actually the godmother of this new fireboat, and it was named Ilene.
Oh,
and so I was supposed to like take a bottle of champagne and crack it. Okay, I must have done it 20 times. It didn't crack. So Jacques took it from me and he cracked it. And I went, and he gave me the mic, and I had just learned a little French. And I said, "Je suis la marraine du pompier," which I was trying to say I was the godmother of the fireboat. But pompier also means giving a blowjob. So I said, "I am the queen of head." And all the press and all the people were hysterical. And they were looking at me, and grabs the mic. And he says, my wife is learning French, and she meant to say she's the godmother of the fireboat, and thank you very much. So I made some gaffes, believe me.
Oh, that's a great story, though. You wouldn't take it back. It's fabulous. It's
So-
fabulous.
So, what were some of your duties there, though, as the First Lady of Nice?
I would say, like any first lady, I was the president of honor of all the different clubs, especially the American club, the British club, the Australian club, all the English-speaking clubs, and obviously all the French. And I was also honored to be the president of honor for the Jewish club over there, and they were so happy to have me. So that was great. So, and I cut ribbons, and I inaugurated hospitals and everything. We were sister cities with 22 cities around the world. And so I got an education that was unreal because we were sister cities with some communist cities, some socialist cities, Western cities, just all over the globe. And I had an incredible, incredible education firsthand. And that will be with me the rest of my life. I mean, everything has formed who I am today from all of my experiences. And they were absolutely incredible at the top, but they were also incredible at the bottom. And the only thing...
Well, we want to know about that. But
Yeah,
first, tell us a little bit about your book, your
my
memoir.
book. Okay, I'm going to just do... It's called Arrested because I was arrested and put in jail.
Well, I guess, is that the meaning of the title there? I mean,
yes, I was arrested.
What happened? What happened?
Oh my God, it's such a long story, but I'm just going to read you this quickly. This is the introduction.
Would you show our YouTube people, but can you hold it higher? Yeah, there it is. Good. That's the book. Okay.
Okay, that's the book. Okay. As I found myself lying on the top bunk in the cell of the toughest women's prison in all of France, I knew I was in big trouble. I looked down at the three other women in their beds, the French prostitute, the Muslim drug dealer, and the young Muslim girl who bit off her mother-in-law's finger. I was thinking this would certainly make interesting dinner conversations someday if I ever get out of here. Many years have now passed since these traumatic events occurred. While the memories remain vivid, I also bear the scars of falling off of a wild ride. Fortunately, I was able to recover enough and stand up to lead my life down a very different treasured path. That's the introduction.
Wow.
That's good.
Yeah. I was in jail, and let me tell you something.
How many days?
I was actually in jail for 5 days. It was totally unexpected because Jacques had been arrested before, but he got out of jail. But he escaped through Italy and went back to Uruguay because we were in political exile living in Uruguay. And
were you ever told what the charges were?
It's always about money. And so they said that the Nice Opera was giving money to a certain head of the opera that Jacques had chosen. And there were millions and millions and millions of dollars that were missing. But the socialists were in, and they wanted Jacques, they wanted to do anything to him because he was the king of the French Riviera and was always swinging votes. So, excuse me, he was arrested for that. And in France, under Napoleonic law, the spouse is responsible for anything that the spouse does. So I didn't realize that I was on an international list to be arrested and put in jail. And so I went to visit some friends, my friends, which I used to visit every year, but I would fly from England, where my friend Trevor Mound was. He was the British ambassador to France, and we became very close. So I would visit him because he had retired, and then I would fly down to Italy, and my friends would come across the border. Well, when Jacques was released and went back to Uruguay, I thought everything was okay. So from London, I flew into Nice, and they arrested me immediately at the airport.
Hmm.
And
Oh
they
man.
really tortured me. It was bad because they wanted to make an example of me.
And
Oh
it
my
can,
gosh. So
Yeah.
it still,
do you cover a lot of that in the book?
Cover
Uh,
everything in great
well,
detail.
how difficult was it for you to write this memoir then?
It was very interesting because when I first came back, there were projects that were supposed to be done. They contacted me. There was supposed to be a movie done. We started to get going with it, and the producer had a heart attack and died. I mean,
oh,
there were lots of things that
Oh,
didn't come through. Every time there was a book deal or there was a this or a movie or a documentary, everything fell through because of either illness or it was too, how can I say, it was so scandalous that the French at the time didn't want to get involved. I knew that whatever I wrote, whatever was written about me, I would never get any royalties from anything because it would all be confiscated by the French government.
mm.
So writing this book for me, uh, it was it was easy and it was very emotional and there were parts where I was writing where I was hysterical crying because my daughter, with everything that had happened, she came down with breast cancer. And so I described everything with that and her plight. She was like kidnapped from me. I mean, there was so much going on. And it's just amazing that
and
I'm alive. I'm alive.
yeah, well, you got very sick too, didn't you?
I got very sick because there's a place in Switzerland called La Prairie, and they were having youth shots, and they would take these placentas of lambs and veals, and they would make a serum out of it, and you would have 7 shots. They would shoot it into your body, and it was supposed to make everything stronger. Ronald Reagan and Nancy went there to get the youth shots. And so Jacques said, well, let's go do this. And I was 40 at the time. So that was the youngest I could be to get these shots. Well, these shots were so horrendous. Even Jacques, who used to get his teeth done uh, with no Novocaine, okay, was
Oh,
writhing around in the bed. I was absolutely writhing around. It was horrendous. When I came back, I started getting sick, and we weren't
back
quite
to
sure
back to
that
United
when we got
States.
back to Nice after the treatments, and I started getting sick, and I didn't know why. And we found out that my lamb, my veal, whatever it was, had some sort of a bacteria in it. And I ended up with a staph infection that destroyed all of my mucus lining from my esophagus through my stomach, all the way through my bladder and out. And I almost died. And it was horrendous. But you have to read the book to find out because I describe everything in detail, everything.
Well,
Oh, good.
we do know that you survived it.
Yes, I survived it,
Yeah.
and I found actually a fantastic doctor. His name was Dr. Fred Kite, and he was experimenting with a serum that he had made up, and he funneled it down my throat through my stomach and funneled it up, and it destroyed all of the inflamed mucus lining from the golden staph infection, and I was able to regenerate new mucus lining. And they said that, I would not probably regenerate more than 75%, but if I was lucky, and I'm very lucky because I don't live with that kind of pain today, but I am susceptible uh, because my mucus lining is damaged, but it's much, like it's healthier than it obviously was. That I just in my mind I have to be careful. I mean, I can eat what I want. I'm lucky, and at that point also, I almost lost my feet. I was in the mountains.
Well,
And
you have to read the book to find all that out.
I mean, it goes on and on and on. It doesn't stop.
But
And the
the book
chapters.
doesn't. The book is great fun. I read it.
Yeah,
But
thank you.
I want to veer back to talking about life in France with your husband, Jacques, because
Oh,
he
okay.
was, according to the book, you both were very close friends, or Jacques was a friend of Prince Rainier and of Monaco. And when you were
Yes.
introduced to Princess Grace and Rainier,
Yes.
What was the protocol? What did you have to do?
Well, see, I met Rainier first. Jacques and my relationship was such a scandal. They said that they hadn't had a scandal like that in over 100 years. I was an American. I was a young girl, and here I am becoming the first lady of Nice, France, and the French Riviera, a Medici Countess. Yeah, did I know? I didn't know. So I was the only other American on the Riviera other than Grace. So, and Jacques was very close. I mean, they were like best friends with Prince Rainier, because whatever Prince Rainier wanted to do construction wise out of Monaco, which would be on our territory, he would have to have Jacques' approval. And so when it was time for me to meet Grace, because she didn't want to meet me because, as I said, it was a scandal. And then Princess Caroline was marrying Jeannot, and they got divorced. So finally, I was allowed, to come to.
But wouldn't Grace have been considered an equal scandal? She was American and all that.
Right. But Rainier didn't divorce for her. Jacques divorced for me. And it was all over every place. I mean, it was in England, Italy.
Germany, that's what made the difference.
That was the difference.
Yeah.
And so when it was time for me to meet Grace, it was at the Grand Prix, the dinner, and it was a dinner in Monaco at the Palace. And so Jacques said to me, "Well, you're going to have to learn how to curtsy and kiss her hand." And I went, "What?"
Kiss her hand.
I said, "I'm an American." I said, "We don't do that, I mean, she's an American." He said, "If you don't do it, you're going to cause a big scandal." I said, "Okay." So I had to take curtsy lessons, bend all the way to the floor, take her hand and kiss her hand and say, "I am very honored to meet you, Your Royal Highness." I was so nervous, but I did it. I did it, and I learned my lessons, and I can't get down now, but because I'm older, can't get down on my knees now. But that was an experience. And when she came into the room, it was Rainier, Jacques, myself, and then bodyguards. She came in, I hate to say it, her hair was askew, her crown was toppled like this. She was very, very chunky. She was drunk. And I was like very surprised. But funny thing is, Christian Dior made me a dress out of this fabulous material. And they made her a dress out of the same material, but it was different. And so when I saw her in the dress, I'm going, "I don't believe it. That looks like my dress." Thank goodness I wasn't wearing that. But
good.
So I had to. That's how I met Grace. And then I was
Ilene, I have to tell you, I was at one time with my husband presented to Rainier and Grace in a receiving line in Monaco when we were visiting there with Kenny Rogers. They wanted to meet Kenny Rogers, the singer.
Right.
And somehow that's how we got invited to the palace. And I think it was outside in the palace grounds. But I wasn't told about curtsying or anything. So I guess I didn't do the protocol.
Probably because I was in France and I was holding the position.
You had to.
He needed me to bow to her. And I understand that because she was, I always liked her as an actress. I thought she was a beautiful woman. And
gorgeous.
Yeah, she was gorgeous. And her whole life with Rainier was
difficult.
Quite difficult, very difficult. As a matter of fact, later on, Rainier was having an affair with this beautiful woman, and she was so sweet. I don't mention any names, but we used to have dinner with them so he could be away, and do his thing. And Jacques was always his beard, and I became their beard. So,
wow, that's tough. Well, you had mentioned about Nice being a sister city to 22 other cities. So can you tell us some experiences that you had while visiting those cities? Like what stands out, or what was funny, or what was awful, or whatever.
Okay. One of the cities was in Hungary, Szeged. And I will never forget this. First of all, it was during the communist time and they were still behind the curtain. And so we were doing all these incredible sites and doing things. And we were on this, it was like a wagon. And we would drive with these Hungarian, gauchos. And we would drive to a restaurant and we would be served, incredible meals and and met all the dignitaries. We get to the airport. We're ready to leave. And I go to the bathroom. And this young girl, as I'm coming out of the stall, comes and says to me, Madame Médecin, I just wanted to speak English with you. I heard that you were an American and that you were a nice person. And I hitchhiked all the way from the other side of Hungary. And so I said to her, I said, are you okay? And she goes, well, not really. She says, I learned English. I wanted to learn English. And I just wanted to speak English with you. And so I said, how unhappy are you? And she went into detail about how unhappy she was there. And I said, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you defect. And when I gave her all my money, we had a code. I got her telephone number and the code that we would talk about it. But it was like we were talking about our cat. Is your cat ready to come? And so I talked to Zach and we got her out. And she came to Nice. And then we got her fiance out. And they're both doctors. And they're living in Nice. And that was very, very special to me. Her name was Dora.
Wow.
And pictures and the description is in the book. So
That's beautiful.
It
Yeah.
is.
Is there anything kind of funny that happened in one of the cities or something that you look back on joyfully?
can I read you something?
Sure.
You're not going to believe this. Okie
Okay.
dokie. Okay, so
Okay.
we were sister cities with Dubai. Okay, my glasses on here because you're going to love this one. Okay, there was a sheik. We were in Dubai because they wanted to build on the French Riviera, so you had to go through Jacques. So they were wining us and dining us, and I was the only woman there. And we had our press secretary and a bodyguard. And we were invited to a dinner with all of the sheiks in the area. And there was one sheik that was missing. So we started the dinner without him. And then during half the meal, he came in and he told us this story. Adjacent to his land was another sheik who had a slightly smaller fiefdom and a daughter. The two sheiks agreed they would unite their states by the first sheik with a larger fiefdom marrying the daughter of the second sheik with a smaller fiefdom. The first sheik would give the wedding party in his grand dining hall. The ceremonies proceeded. The entire family of the new bride had been invited to this grand event and were wined and dined to excess. At the end of the extravagant meal, the sheik had his personal assassins swoop in and cut off all their heads, except for his new bride. He said to her, you are either with me or you're with your family. All the land is mine. It's your choice. You can lay with them or be my wife. She decided to remain his wife. Now, I heard this when this sheik came in firsthand, and all of the hair on my arms were standing up, and I have a very expressive face, if you haven't noticed that now. And Jacques had his hand on my thigh, and he says, do not say a thing. Do not react. Do not have one of your faces. And that's something that I'll never forget. And I describe it even more so in detail in the book.
Good story.
Hello?
But you must have kind of a story for every city.
Every city,
I bet you do.
But, and I can go on
to
other things that,
oh my God. Well,
actually,
is Nice sister cities with anybody in the United States?
Beverly Hills, right?
No, that was, we were going to be sister cities with Carmel. We had met with Clint Eastwood. And we were, because Cannes they wanted to be sister cities with Beverly Hills.
Yeah, I knew that Cannes was, yeah.
And so we were becoming sister cities with Carmel, but that's also before we were escaping. I mean, it was, so I don't think it went through.
Oh, it didn't happen.
I didn't go through, so.
But nothing on the East Coast or anything like that?
Well, we were sister cities with Dallas on the East Coast.
That's interesting. Dallas.
Dallas. Yeah.
And you spent time there?
That's when I decided that Jack and we loved each other. I mean, he was after me. I loved it. I mean, he really came after me. He wouldn't let me go. On our way to Dallas, and this was in the very beginning, and we're on the plane going there, and he says to me, well, I've made up my mind. I'm going to quit politics, divorce my wife, and marry you and live in bliss. Well, Jacques was never going to quit his political life, believe me. So that's when we went, and I say it in the book, and I regurgitate cheese and crackers that I had in my mouth. I was so shocked. And then when we got to Tahiti, this was another, because we were also sister city, was
Papeete?
Yes. And so that's when I realized that I was in love with him. I'd never been in love before. And it was like so clear. We were on this yacht that he had rented, and he was standing at the back of the bow, and we hit a wave, and I thought he was going to go over and, be eaten by the rudders, whatever. Okay. And I've never had anything so clear in my life. It was like, boom, if this man goes over, I will lose the love of my life. And so he looked at me and he said, are you okay? And I said, I'll tell you when we get back to our little grass shack in Tahiti. And I said to him, what you saw was me realizing for the first time in my life, I'm in love and I will marry you. Well, he starts to cry. Then I'm crying. He bends me back. He's kissing me. And from that point on, we started making plans. And it was a 2-year, absolutely scandalous time before we finally got married.
Well, we want to hear more about that.
And everything in the book, it's all written out and it's all the truth. And I'm going to read you one more thing, which is going to really, really surprise you. We have so many people always wanting to give us dinners and give us money for campaigns. So we were invited to Paris one night to this couple who were giving a lot of money for the campaigns, and they were giving us a dinner. So I'm not going to go. I mean, I described the dinner and everything, but as soon as the waiters cleared the dessert dishes, 2 butlers appeared and led us down a long hallway to another room where they opened 2 large double-carved wooden doors. Holy merde! Surprise is not the word. Absolutely shocking might be better, and we were the guests of honor. There on a huge bed in the middle of the room with brass posts reaching towards a black painted ceiling were our 2 hosts, husband and wife. The husband was standing on the bed and had handcuffed his wife to the brass bedposts. He was whipping her with a black snake whip. They were quite naked. The gorgeous gown had disappeared and the snappy tuxedo had vanished. Underwear and intimate apparel were no longer necessary either. To my surprise, the other diners were not alarmed. Sounds and deep groans began emerging from the crowd. People were swaying on their feet, amazed and mesmerized and obviously approving. The seemed to coincide with each pop of the whip on the wife's hindquarters. There was a kind of rhythm going on, and the lady was smiling through clenched teeth. Her hubby standing behind her was sweating and grinning. The rest of the crowd started stripping and doing things to each other that were equally kinky and weird. Everyone wanted to participate in the action. They tore off their expensive garments as quickly as possible, and everybody was naked and raw, except for Jacques and myself. People were too busy to notice that Jacques and I were standing there with clothes on, observing. Was there fine print on the invitation that we missed? There were more whips and articles made of leather, glass, metal hanging from the wall. Everyone seemed to know exactly which instrument to use for each purpose. So I was fascinated, and Jacques he stood there and he just took my hand and he just, we're out of here. But it goes into detail, even more detail. So I've had some unusual experiences around the world.
Yes, you have. And I have to interject here that Ilene and I have known each other for a very long time. And she's told me No, I don't say how long.
But you were in school together, right?
Thank you, Kathy. We were in high school together.
Yes, we
There.
were.
Which was, 20 years ago. Ha ha.
Oh my God.
Anyway, she's told me a lot of these stories, and I continue to be fascinated by them, even though I've heard some of them before. But talk about you. I think you've mentioned some of this already, but can you tell us a few more of the highs and maybe some of the lows that you haven't talked about?
Well, the highs were incredible. I mean, I was grateful and privy to meet royalty, uh, all of the Italian actors in cinema and Americans and the French, because we sponsored the Italian Film Festival for a while. And there was Jeanne Moreau, who was my favorite French actress, who had she was the first French actress, I guess, to do a movie that was I saw in in the States in LA, and so she was coming, and that was an interesting one. So I was taking care of her, and I heard from my girlfriends, you have to be careful with Jeanne because she doesn't really like women. She can be very rude and everything. So the minute she got into my car, I said to her, I am a big fan of yours from America. And I said, I saw your movie, when I was like, 15 years old. I said, incredible. So she started warming up to me right away. And she eventually, we went to lunch. We had dinner. We talked. She invited me to Paris to have an affair with her. So that was an interesting highlight. I sort of mentioned that in the book, but I never got to it because I was busy and she was busy and we could never coordinate. Who knows what would have happened? Never know, do you?
You don't know.
I bet you were a bit curious, but
yeah, well, and also I became close with Sergio Leone, and I was going to have an affair with him, and I was almost on my way to Rome, but he had gone down to the southern Italy, and unfortunately, he died before we got together. But no, that's very scandalous. Lots of affairs in there, and
well, then
you could say that you should write a book about this, but you have.
Yeah. Well, people are telling you should write.
Told you that.
Yeah, I'm not writing a sequel.
I mean, what was it like then to come back to the U.S. after all that you'd been through?
With everything, and also being, deathly ill, and finally getting over that and everything. My whole, it's like you're a different person. I mean, my experiences, nobody can handle those experiences. So I didn't talk about them too much, except for, a couple of close friends. It was difficult because I was completely, my mindset was different. I had learned things that you don't learn just because you're traveling around the world and you're seeing museums and restaurants, and going to shops and stuff. I mean, I was, really in the belly of it. And so, I mean, the people I talked to, and it just, these things don't leave your mind. I live with a little PTSD. And every once in a while, I'll have a meltdown and be in my closet in the fetal position. And then I'm okay. So thank goodness it doesn't happen too often.
Well, what happened with your daughter? Talk about that a little bit, because when you came back here.
That was horrendous. Well, I was living in Uruguay and going back and forth for about 3.5 years. And I wanted her to come back with me. And she was completely brainwashed by Jacques. And he was very abusive with her. And I didn't know any about all this. But she ended up, when she finally came back to me, because he was murdered, thank you very much, that was the only way I was going to get her back, I can tell you. I mean, he was escaping into the Pampas, I mean, in Uruguay. I mean, it's unreal. And she ended up having breast cancer. And that absolutely destroyed us. I mean, when I talk about this, I'm sorry, because I get very emotional. It's hard for me to talk about it, what we went through. And thank goodness, she's in remission today. But
Okay.
she lives with tremendous PTSD because she was tortured by him. There was a point where she was washing her hair, and the electricity would always go off because they didn't have a good grid there. And so she would come out of the shower, and she had run out of conditioner for her hair. And so he had burst into the room, and he said, "What's going on?" And she says, "Well, Daddy, do you think you could get me some conditioner?" And he picked her up by her hair and threw her across the room. Now, if I would have known what was going on with him and this was happening, because she was too afraid to tell me, I probably would be in jail for killing him. Our daughter is extremely, she's a good person. She's a sweet girl, extremely, extremely damaged. She's 43.
What country was she born in?
I made sure when I was 7 months pregnant to come back to the States, I wanted her to be an American citizen. Because at that time you couldn't have a dual or triple passport. And so, but eventually she'll always be an American citizen. She had a French passport, and then she had a Uruguayan passport.
What's happening with your book now? How it's doing? As long as you veered into that.
Oh, okay. I'm really surprised. I have been getting royalty checks, and I have been selling. Amazon has been back ordered and won't have orders in that people are waiting for until September. They can't keep the book.
Nice.
I'm amazed.
Nice.
And my publisher is just loving it, and it's selling. So that's why I needed to have it translated, which is finished now. It's going to be published in French. That should be a big audience. It better be. And it'll also be sent to Uruguay. It'll be sent to England. And then, as I said, audio is being done. And I've listened to, she's over halfway through the book.
And who's doing the audio?
Laura Lockwood. And I've been sent these chapters, listening to them, and I'm like, that was my life? That was me? I mean, a little frightening there.
So odd.
So, there were chapters that I had to stop because I was crying. And
understandable.
I'm trying to get emotional because I'm remembering those chapters. So,
right.
But
well, Ilene, what would you like our audience to have as a takeaway today?
I'm going to read you something. And this is the end of the book because I wasn't going to do this, but it says, "At this point in my life, I choose not to waste my energy with toxic people. There are so many things I wish I could reveal at this time, but it wouldn't be wise. Too many people have allegedly disappeared because of the things I was privy to as Jacques' wife. Even though most of the dangerous people have died, I won't take chances by consciously putting myself in harm's way." Well, that's politics for you. And what I have written is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, which is racy enough for this memoir. Regarding my untold stories, there may be a more appropriate time post-mortem for them to be published. I'm very grateful to share these chapters of my life with hope the readers can fathom my firsthand experiences. It would make me happy if my story serves as an inspiration for others to seek and fulfill their own true dreams. I have always pushed my life to the fullest to accomplish my goals, and as harrowing as it's been, I now believe I have succeeded in finding the correct path. So when India becomes safe for travel again, I will plan my next trip to Udaipur. I shall pay homage and thank Ganesh for his loving guidance and support. I'm just waiting for the word go to get on that plane. Until then, I wish you all namaste. Because I spent a lot India. I've got over 77 pictures in the book, and it proves what I'm saying. Because I know when I'm reading a memoir, if I don't see pictures, I'm going, okay, is that really what happened? I've got pictures to prove everything. I've got pictures of me in jail. I've got pictures, of
good
everything.
Yeah. Well, That's very, it's heartwarming to hear that, and that you've recovered so well from all those crazy, insane, fun, and horrible experiences, and to hear that your daughter Joy is doing so well.
Yes,
So
she's doing well.
thank you, my friend.
Oh, thank you both so much. I really appreciate, you wanting to hear me.
Yeah.
And, this has been a real honor for me. I thank you so much.
Well, our guest today on Late Boomers has been Countess Ilene Medecin, the former First Lady of Nice, France, and the French Riviera. If you would like to learn more about the Countess's life, and you've heard some here, but there's so much more, or you'd like to purchase her book, you can contact her via her website, Countess Ilene Medecin, and that's ILENEMEDECIN.com. And you can purchase her book, Arrested, on Amazon or through her publisher, Book Baby. Thank you.
And thank you for listening to our Late Boomers podcast and subscribing to our Late Boomers podcast channel on YouTube. Listen in next week when you'll meet another exciting guest. You can listen to Late Boomers on any podcast platform and look at our new website, lateboomers.us, where you can find all our episodes and descriptions. Please follow us on Instagram at I am Kathy Worthington and at I am Mary Elkins and at Late Boomers. Thanks again, Countess Ilene Medecin.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you for joining us on Late Boomers, the podcast that is your guide to creating a third act with style, power, and impact. Please visit our website and get in touch with us at lateboomers.us. If you would like to listen to or download other episodes of Late Boomers, go to ewnpodcastnetwork.com.
This podcast is also available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and most other major podcast sites. We hope you make use of the wisdom you've gained here and that you enjoy a successful third act with your own style, power, and impact.